What's up guys, my name is Ace, and this morning we got an intel drop for Modern Warfare 3, and this one is for multiplayer, which is excellent to see. And the primary thing they were showing off here is just some flyovers and overviews of all of the maps you're going to be seeing at launch, which of course, as we know at this point, these are all remastered maps from the original Modern Warfare 2. They also talked a little bit about their philosophy while recreating these maps, and on top of this, there was a little snippet of what you could call multiplayer gameplay, although it's not like a gameplay against other people. Instead, it's just a short clip showing a player moving around the map with multiplayer mechanics. However, there's no user interface elements and no shooting going on. It's just them mantling around the map, but we can gain a little bit of insight into certain aspects of the gameplay from these short clips. So without further ado, let's dive right into this, and I first wanted to touch on some of the talking points they had throughout the video. One thing they mentioned is there may be some very minor changes to metrics with the levels just to account for new gameplay mechanics. However, their philosophy while designing these always leaned more toward keeping things original. So they wanted to keep things as original as possible. And I think based on these clips and the images that we've seen in the blog post as well, which I will put on screen at some point here too, it does appear they have stayed very true to these maps. I don't see any really obvious changes. There's a couple really minor things that I will point out in a little bit. But for the most part, as far as we can see, these maps stayed true to what they were in the original game. They just look completely modernized, and in some cases you can tell they adjusted some of the color palettes that they used, as well as on some of the maps the time of day is slightly different. However, the general theme of these maps seem to hold true to the originals. Now, let's get into some of the more specific things that I noticed though. The first thing that caught my eye, and I was really trying to keep an eye out for, is on Highrise, it looks like they kept the original jump spots. You can see that angled ramp above the TheXclusiveAce sign right there. I hope this isn't just a cosmetic thing. I hope we still have the ability to make our leap of faith off the one edge and then walk around the ledge in order to get on top of that ramp, so then you can get on top of the roof. I really liked the sort of Easter egg, high risk, high reward nature to that particular spot. And I hope it does return to Highrise. As far as we can tell, it looks like it will be. After that, let's talk a little bit about doors. I watched this through frame by frame, and I did find a couple cases where they have added interactable doors. The most obvious one here is actually from one of the images in the blog post on Quarry. You can see this door right here. That does appear to be an interactable door, because in the original, that was just an open doorway. However, the one at the top of the ramp, that looks like just an open doorway, or maybe there is an interactable door there that has just been opened. Also, on Estate, on this side of the house, it looks like there's a wooden doorway there as well. However, it's not a solid door. It looks like it has some windows in it, so it looks like you'll be able to see through and shoot through that door, which is an interesting take on doors, and I think a nice middle ground at least. Next, on Skid Row, they're showing off some of the development of this tunnel area, and in the background, you can see what appears to be an interactable door there as well. And then finally, on Invasion here, it looks like that is another interactable door there as well. So they're definitely adding doors to these maps. However, it looks like they weren't trying to force them into every single doorway or opening like we've seen in some of the recent Call of Duty games. I'm hoping that's actually the case, and it's not just a case of those doors being open and they selected their camera angles really carefully to try to make it look like there were no doors there. So we will have to wait to see a little bit more on those. I'm also curious to see if some of these doors, especially the wooden ones, can be destroyed. I know in Call of Duty Vanguard, that's something we were able to do, and that's Sledgehammer's most recent game. So now that we know that doors are going to be in the game, we'll just have to wait to see how they played out and how prevalent they're going to be. Next, something they talked about a little bit and actually showed off with the little gameplay clips is they have added the ability to mantle on things that you were unable to mantle on in the original Modern Warfare 2. And this is absolutely going to have an impact on how some of the maps play. However, at this stage, we don't know if that's going to be for the better or for the worse. I think there are definitely some opportunities where this could maybe take some of the power away from some of the camping positions, but then in other ways, perhaps this is going to really mess with the flow of a map, where previously you knew that the enemy could only come from certain areas, but now they'll be able to come from a ton of different areas, and that might mess with how the map plays and flows. Like I said, I think this could go either way, and I think there will probably be a little bit of both. I think there will be certain areas where this has a negative impact, and certain areas where this could have a positive impact on gameplay. So we'll really just have to wait and see until we get our hands on the game to really judge whether or not these additional mantles are going to be a good thing overall. And then one last thing I wanted to point out here is I was looking really carefully for any opportunity for swimming to take place, since we do have swimming mechanics, and based on the leaked perks that we got for Modern Warfare 3, it does appear that swimming is going to be a supportive mechanic with the perk system. However, when you look back to the old Modern Warfare 2 maps, swimming wasn't a thing back in those days. And the maps don't really seem to allow for any swimming, aside from maybe like sub-base. Some people pointed it out up on the dockhouse area of Estate. Perhaps you could swim around a little bit there. Unfortunately, we didn't get to see that side of Estate in these overviews, so we can't really judge whether or not we'll be able to swim there. Another thing was perhaps they'll flood the canal that goes through the middle of Rundown. Again, we didn't get to see that area of the map based on these flyovers. However, on Subbase, we do get a bit of a shot of where we have some water. And it looks like they have railings all the way around, just like with the original map. And the one area where it looks like there's a ladder that comes out of the water and up onto the play space of the map, as far as we can tell, that ladder is completely blocked off and you can't interact with that. And therefore, it looks highly unlikely that we're going to be able to swim, at least on this section of Subbase. But that was the obvious section where swimming would likely take place if they were going to allow it on the map. So there we go, just another little thing that I wanted to point out that I found while looking through these images very carefully. Now let's talk a little bit about that 16 seconds of gameplay that we saw with a character running and mantling around on Highrise. The first thing to point out is the gun in their hand. This is an Uzi. And the second thing that immediately caught my attention is the speed at which you're able to mantle, and also right here in this section, the ability to quickly chain mantles together. This is two very quick simultaneous mantles. It looks like they actually initiated the second mantle partway through the animation for the first mantle. And as a more aggressive player that's really disliked how slow mantling is in Modern Warfare 2, I'm quite happy to see this, even if this is done through a perk. We don't know if this character has any perks equipped. But on top of that, while watching this character mantle onto objects that are like higher than head level, in Modern Warfare 2, they would go into a ledge hang state before getting on top of the object, whereas in these clips, there is no apparent ledge hanging whatsoever in this. And while we have seen ledge hanging in some of the campaign gameplay clips they've shown off already with Modern Warfare 3, so far it appears it's not going to be present in the multiplayer, and I hope this is the case. I'm not a big fan of ledge hanging. It was definitely an interesting mechanic they added to the game, but I don't think it really added much to the gameplay. And if anything, I just found it frustrating that it was now 2 animations I had to activate to get over a piece of cover or to get on top of something, when I personally had no interest in using the ledge hang and I just wanted to get over that cover as fast as possible. Next, the base movement speed for an SMG doesn't seem out of control. It doesn't seem insanely fast or really slow. Part of this could just be the FOV that they're using in this is different from the FOV I'm using, so it's just a perception thing. But this is one of those areas where even as a more aggressive player, I hope they don't go overboard with the base movement speeds. I want to see solid strafe speeds in gunfights, for instance, compared to what we've got in Modern Warfare 2, but I don't want to see the ability for people to zip around the map so quickly that they're impossible to track and hit, or so fast that it just completely throws off the flow and the pacing of the multiplayer maps. And it does seem like they've got things kept in check based on these short clips. Now, I don't want to judge things too heavily at this point because we're just seeing some early clips here. We don't even know if the mechanics that were used in this clip are going to be the final mechanics that we see when we get our hands on the game, and we don't know what attachments or perks are present, if any. And that right there is going to wrap it up for everything I wanted to talk about, with one last mention here. And this is something that I feel is going to be very important when it comes to these maps. So far, I'm really liking the looks of things. It looks like they've really modernized these maps nicely while sticking to their general themes and also staying true to the maps as far as we can tell. But at the end of the day, I still think one of the most important elements when it comes to these maps is the spawn design. And that's something we will have to wait to get our hands on. This is something that can easily take a great map and make it play like crap. So there we go. Those are my thoughts. And this is where I want to hear from you guys in those comments down below. First up, what are you guys thinking about the looks of these maps? Are you generally happy with how they've remastered them or not so much? And also, how are you feeling about the little clips of gameplay that we've seen so far here? If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated. And don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.